All right, welcome to the Noted Bitcoin Podcast. I'm your co-host, Pierre Richard, here with Michael Goldstein, aka Bitstein. How's it going, Michael?
Howdy, doing well.
So we wanted to have a longtime friend of ours come on, the Bitcoin Rabbi, and I say longtime friend in terms of like Bitcoin time because I got a message from you, I think, a couple of months ago, asking for help on the node launcher. And then
I must have been. I think that I was probably one of the earliest people who jumped on that right away because I was looking for months to try and get. I'm not a technical person. I mean, not a coder, not a back end programmer that I was able to get on the Lightning Network. And when you posted it, probably the first tweet that you can get on the Lightning Network and it's not custodial and it's it's for somebody who doesn't have to code anything. I was like jumped right on it.
Yeah, and when I got your question, like you were one of the first people, if not the first person, to ask for help on it, and so I was like very excited to have a user, and so that's why I like jumped on the phone with you.
That's right. Yeah, we did. We had a nice chat. It must have been about 3 months ago.
Yeah.
I must be one of your, besides that, like as far as your guests on your podcast, I'm probably one of the noobest people here, which has its advantages. I can proudly say that I, having bought Bitcoin after the Bcash fork, I've never held any Bcash, which all of you OGs can't claim.
That definitely makes you even less of an altcoiner than like, the most maximalist of maximalists who have all had to touch an altcoin, whether they sold it or not.
Yeah, I feel bad.
Yeah, so you're definitely you're already ahead of us, despite being so new. And the other thing too, though, is that like, I really, what I've noticed over the years in Bitcoin is that it really does not matter at all what specific year someone came into Bitcoin, in terms of like how well are they going to understand Bitcoin, how much influence are they going to have, and how are their ideas going to like grow, and so. Because like you can look, obviously there's obvious examples like Roger Ver, he was around from the beginning, and then like he was in this big block camp and like now is running a scammy website. Like even or aside from that,
I'm hardly an influencer or anything, but I think that one of the best
you're on your way by being on
the
Noted Bitcoin Podcast. You're already halfway there.
It's a real honor. And I look down your list, and it's like Bitcoin Core developers, all of this, and then I'm not quite Bitcoin sign guy, but I'm maybe in that genre of interesting characters. But so I did appreciate that. So I've been following Bitcoin really every day for a year and a half, more than that. But I didn't say I was quiet for the first year and didn't say anything because I knew that I just wanted to learn and just wanted to listen. And I didn't come here to fix anything. That I think was a good perspective to have. So that's why, I've been in the space for whatever, a year and a half or close to 2 years, but I didn't make myself known or present in like a public way on Twitter until the past few months.
What first like struck your interest in Bitcoin? What was the thing about it that
like everybody, I think the first time that I ever remember hearing about Bitcoin and totally disregarded it was probably 2011, and it was probably a front page of Reddit or something like that. That was like suicide hotline. It's just money. Your life is more important. And I was like, well, I have zero interest in being involved in anything about this. So next. But as far as when my older brother, who really got me into Bitcoin, he got me into Judaism. He's, we're very close. And I probably in mid 2017, he's like, hey, I actually used to mine Bitcoin on my laptop, but I don't know what happened to that, and I just try not to think about it. But the price broke $1,000, and now it's I bought some, and it's even more now. So once I spent maybe a half a day just thinking about it and listening, probably 3 hours of Andreas videos, that I understood what was going on here, that it's actually a decentralized money of the internet and has a hard cap of the 21 million coins. It was pretty much instantly like I knew that this was going to be a big thing and a big part of my life. And I grew up on my family on the politically conservative libertarian side fiscally, and so it kind of just seemed like a perfect fit. Like I was interested in gold, but never had the means of investing, or never really went through with it. And not that it would have mattered with my rabbi day school teacher salary, that investing in gold would be like a big thing. And that's really the thing. I don't even know if the investment financially is like going to be so life-changing, but I think this is really world-changing. Like that's what I'm more interested in. That's why I spend my time and my energy and talk about it, because of what I think it's going to be the effect for the world and for people. To speaking of Roger, like, as besides all of his stuff, when he talks about, helping all people all over the world and liberty and all of that, like that does speak to me. And, I had that kind of perspective from before. So once I realized Bitcoin is the real deal that does all of this, I was just like, oh yeah, this is perfect. Then also on top of that, there's a community that is into tech, into, free market libertarianism, really likes meat. And also, like, half the people involved have beards. Not you guys, but a lot of the
Greg, I was like, Maxwell types.
Yeah, I'm like, did they find my dreams and make a community that would fit me perfectly? So yeah, it's been fun. And actually, so it was in like October when the 2x was all when before. So like me and a friend were talking about it. I got him into Bitcoin and trying to make sense of it and understand, and if coins were on Coinbase, what was going to happen. So we started a WhatsApp chat group between me and a friend and my brother, and we were just chatting, and then we posted the link chat to on our Facebooks and friends. Now we have 130 people. It's an all Jewish/Israeli Bitcoin cryptocurrency discussion chat group that just started out of totally like a little conversation, and it just blew up into this thing. It's been a little quieter during the bear market, but last year in like December, it was pretty pumping.
Bitcoin has perennially been pretty popular among Israelis. It seems when I went, when I went for the first time in 2014, it was January 2014, and still in the United States, if you asked anyone about Bitcoin, they usually had no clue what you were talking about. But generally, whenever I, of course, everywhere I go in the world, I found myself evangelizing about Bitcoin. If I opened my mouth about Bitcoin, people not only usually knew what it was, but were also, they tended to be open to it and interested in it.
Well, apparently, I saw pictures that the Bitcoin embassy in Tel Aviv, which you guys were talking about on your last podcast, they had the biggest celebration on January 3rd or something. They had, what's her name? Elena V something from Casa, and Nick Szabo was there, and like the week before that, Adam Back was there, and so like a lot of people, like Jimmy Song's gone through Tel Aviv. I know, like there is definitely a big. When I lived in Israel for 3.5 years, from 2007 to 2011. And so it wasn't anything that I also was in yeshiva in rabbinical school, so I wasn't in that scene at all at that time. Yeah. But no, it obviously wasn't like it is now, but it definitely is a big scene, and there's a lot of crypto stuff going on as well, which isn't exactly the same thing.
You mean like other cryptocurrencies
as Bitcoin,
or just also?
Yeah, I mean,
there's also a lot
just
of just
the
cryptography.
crypto space. No, I mean the cryptocurrency space, the VC investor. It's not exactly the same community as the Bitcoin community.
No, not quite. So we asked the Bitcoin community to send us some questions for you that are, so let's start with our friend Justin Moon, who was actually on our previous episode, I think, from Biddle Bootcamp. If you have not signed up for Biddle Bootcamp yet, you still can. Go to Biddle Bootcamp / noted, so you get a $100 discount on that. He asked, what do the Old Testament and Talmud have to say about money and money production?
Okay, so being that these are, we're talking about, let's say, start with Abraham. The very first time that money is mentioned in the Torah is Abraham buys a field in Hebron. He's buying a field and a cave as a burial plot for his wife. This is in the book of Genesis. And there he spends silver shekels, silver coins that are measured by weight. And that's how purchases. And I mean, since we're talking about that was 4,000 years ago, give or take, maybe 4,000 to 5,000 years ago, and the entire Bible, the Torah, and the Talmud are all from 2,000 years ago. So monetary policy was gold coins and silver coins. That's what it, by definition, always was. And so, it was hard money, and like from the Bitcoin standard, it was like if you were a good king, then your coins actually had the amount of gold and silver they were supposed to have. And if you were kind of trying to defraud and take money for yourself, then they were didn't weigh as much as they should have. And that's basically that was how monetary policy worked for thousands of years. And it's the same way that it worked in Judaism. So I said that I think that it's kind of like the way that it works now, like that it's even a question that, should money be that you have the money and it's worth it, or we can just print more and inflate more? Like, it's kind of like fraud. Like, who would vote for that? Who would agree to that kind of system? Like, here, you can have this money that it stays the same amount or becomes more valuable by deflation, or I'll just, you have your money and I can make more of it whenever I want to. Like, what? So that is actual, as far as the money supply, like, policy. I think it's pretty standard for the time period. But since the Jewish people have been all over the world and in various countries, we can use whatever money. I mean, our policy across the board kind of is whatever is the best technology, which money is a technology. We'll use the best technology for whatever our purposes are. So that applies to to medicine and to money and to whatever else, to communication and stuff. So we don't shy away from using whatever the best technology is, but that historically in all Jewish texts, it was always talking about hard precious metals.
That makes sense. And so like, is there animosity towards fiat money in any way? Like,
not in Judaism, I wouldn't say there's animosity towards that. There is, if you look in the Talmud, the job of a tax collector is like a dirty word in the Talmud. I guess it's that it was just assumed that tax collectors were corrupt and that they were always skimming off the top. Skimming from the top. So being a tax collector was definitely has a very negative connotation. Like, they're not allowed to serve as witnesses in court cases. There's a list of a bunch of different kinds of people that are considered just by definition not trustworthy people. So they are in that category.
I guess that was also coming from a time when a tax collector had to go actually collect taxes.
Yeah, they were going to your house, and that was, yes. So they were definitely not welcome members of society.
Yeah, today you just, mail your check in, or have it be, skimmed away without having even to do anything.
Yeah, and then Michael, they lie to you by doing the opposite of sending you a check, and they're like, "Oh, you should be happy at this tax refund we sent you." It's like, okay, but
it's your own
only
money.
Yeah, I mean, Judaism is not an anarchist system, meaning we don't believe in anarchy. So we do believe in government and taxes in general, but we believe that in a minarchist kind of system, and we have because we've lived amongst in various countries. It's been kind of rule, like you pay your taxes, you follow the laws of wherever your country are, whether you like it or not. You should be a good, productive citizen, and positive to the. But it's nice that we can vote and do more than vote now. You can hold Bitcoin, so that's like kind of a way of voting.
Well, the other thing too is that from a technology perspective, using cryptography, using Bitcoin means that we can much more easily audit that the tax collector is not skimming off the top. So there's, I think, more accountability in that kind of system. And especially if they can't fall back on the inflation tax that is like hidden, and they have to rely on actual taxes, and also they can't fall back on just, today they'll like garnish your wages by putting, a lien on your bank account or something like that. With Bitcoin, like there's no third party like a bank account that they can go just take the money from. So I think that there's it means that they got to put more work into getting taxes. And I think it also means that they have to have more legitimacy in terms of the services that we get from government being commensurate with the amount of value that they're asking from us.
Yeah. Also, as far as transparency, that could also be used in public or private charities, at the way that they are audited and the way that they can prove their funds. And I mean, we are, very big supporter of public charity, and I'm a very big, giver to I believe that we all, as part of the believing government should do less and let us do more. We try to take the responsibility to get involved more. I just want to say about technology, that there actually is a very interesting verse or section from the Zohar. Are either of you familiar with the Zohar? It's the book of Kabbalah. It's the mystical teachings. So it actually gives like a time frame. So this book was written 2,000 years ago. There are different questions about when different sections were written at different times, but it's an old ancient Jewish text on mysticism, and it actually gives a date and says basically the 1800s puts it as a time. I've just got the line in here. The 6th century of the 6th millennium, which in the Jewish calendar comes up to like the 1800, give or take. The gates of wisdom will be open from some supernal, like godly wisdom, and the springs of earthly wisdom will also be open, preparing the world to be elevated for the future. So technology was predicted to be part of this, both technological and scientific knowledge, and also spiritual awareness, awakening up. So we really embrace that. Although some rabbis, I'll say I don't speak for every rabbi. There are lots of there's even in the Orthodox, there's different types and different opinions of this, but in my circles, that it's definitely all technology is embraced as that it can be used, and the reason it exists is to be used for good things. So Bitcoin and the technology of all of that, and whatever we can use, medicine and everything to what we're doing here, podcasting is all to do good things.
On a sort of other extreme of that, you have, communities like the Amish that are very hesitant to take up any new technology, although they do have processes by which they introduce new technologies. Are there any, a new technology like Bitcoin comes on the scene? Is there a process?
I mean, I wouldn't say that there's a process of vetting new technologies. It would be more because the technology in and of itself exists for good. So it's more a vetting of how to use it for good. So like the same, nuclear energy can be used for nuclear bombs or nuclear energy. The internet can be used for lots of good things and lots of bad things. So it's a bit just about vetting it in that sense. But there are even other Orthodox Jews that don't go so far as not using electricity, but really believe in sheltering themselves from all forms of internet and all forms of which it can be understandable when you kind of look at how much of the percentage of the world is not in line with our values.
The internet is a horrible place. I don't know why Gentiles go on the internet. I don't know why anyone, even the craziest nihilist atheists, why they would ever consider going on the internet, considering how awful of a place it is. But here we are.
Yes, and here we are. That's what you can't live with it, can't live without it. But I was gonna say that. So I get you introduced me as the Bitcoin rabbi. Really, I get my friends and family and fellow rabbis call me by my Hebrew name is Michael, which is the same as you, I guess, Michael. Mm-hmm. And then my mailman and doctor's office call me Michael, how it's written. But all the people that talk to me on the internet all just call me Rabbi. So I do like that, that all my students and strangers on the internet replying to my tweets all call me Rabbi. So that's kind of good.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that part of why that is, I think, is it's rare to find any kind of religious leader who is interested in Bitcoin, right?
We looked for a Bitcoin imam and a Bitcoin priest.
Reverend. I haven't seen
we did find a Bitcoin rabbi.
A cardinal.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I'm definitely not the biggest rabbi and biggest well-respected rabbi. I'm definitely not the biggest well-respected Bitcoiner, but I think I just found that niche so far that at least I'm, like I said, I've got a chat group with lots of guys who are rabbis or could be rabbis who are both into Bitcoin or crypto, but I wanted to come out. And actually, when I decided to do this, I thought about for a second, what should I call myself? Should I be the crypto rabbi, and I took a hard stand that I was gonna I wanted to talk about Bitcoin, something that I believe in and that I'm feel comfortable talking about. Even so, I have a presentation that I've started. I gave it over once. I'm going to be doing it. I gave it to my high school students. It's called Bitcoin and Judaism, and I'm going to be doing it again for college students. And I'm hoping to give it around for a few different places. To get some. If anybody is in the New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, Massachusetts area, and you have a Jewish youth or college group, and you want me to come talk to them about Judaism and Bitcoin, that's what I'm trying to do. So I didn't mention any altcoins anywhere in it for the first time I did the presentation, and somebody was like, you have to say something. So you have to you can't just pretend like they don't exist. And I was like, why not? So I put in just a page with all the top 50 logos or something. And I put a line in my presentation. I'm like, because Bitcoin is so popular and so technology is so revolutionary, a lot of spin-offs like Ripple, Dogecoin, and Dentacoin have tried to use this technology to go in different directions. So far, none of them have been able to prove anything, but time will tell. Yeah. So that's how I, put my
until then
put a little asterisk in there.
They're the trait of crypto. Stay away.
Yeah.
What are some of the big takeaways in your talk on Bitcoin and Judaism? What are some of the biggest connections you see?
So, first of all, if this it's a little stretch, but the whole Judaism is really like a blockchain. And why is it? Because one, we have a 5,000 year tradition, and we actually call we know the names of the rabbis from each generation going back to Moses. We have a tradition. It's called a Masorah, a tradition, and it's also called a shalshelis, a chain. That's literally the word that's used of the chain of the Jewish tradition, because it's not enough it's not enough just to have the books. You actually have to have the rabbis who explain, and I mean like big rabbis that are like leaders of the generation, not like me, but you know, like the worldwide famous rabbis that explain and give you know, the people that I go to and ask for advice from. So each generation is basically like a block that is produced by the miners, who are the rabbis. I think the header of each block in Bitcoin is connected to the previous block. Is that how it works?
Yeah, it's part of the, yeah.
So if you look at basically every single Jewish commentary from, you know, every generation, it starts and continuously references the generation before it, which references the generation before it. So it really does work like a chain like that. The 613 commandments basically correlate to the 21 million cap. We have 613 mitzvos, the commandments in the Torah, that we don't add them, we don't take them away. That's like the basis of the whole thing. And the Torah itself we have the same book for 3,000 years, which it itself is an immutable ledger or an immutable document. And or alternatively, there are lots of verses that say, you know, that every deed that we do is written in a book, and that, you know, it's part of that God is watching over us and watching our deeds for the good and for the not good. And so that's like the immutable ledger. And also the way Orthodox, you'll notice there are lots of different types of Jewish people that dress differently and talk differently and have different customs, but we do still have consensus. So like a Sephardic Jew, an Ashkenazi Jew, a Hasidic Jew, all different kinds of people, they can all like come together and pray together and eat together, because even though we're different, we have consensus, and we don't like hard forks. People can be different and they can have different opinions, but you still kind of have to stay within consensus. So that's how Judaism as a whole kind of represents blockchain. But I think that I think in my presentation, I'm really just showing how we got from silver coins to fiat money. I really do talk a lot about, a big bulk of it in the middle is just about how we got from hard money to fiat money, and why Bitcoin solves that and gives us the advantage. So I'm really talking about that from that perspective. But also a lot of Jews can relate to the idea of being unconfiscatable. Which apparently isn't actually a real word. It's non-confiscatable, but I like unconfiscatable. That's
I think Tone Base made that word up, and it'll stick.
Yeah, it has stuck. Yeah, I mean, Jews have lived for the past 2,000 years. We've been pretty much in exile from our homeland, from Israel, and we've had to live in like dozens and dozens of different countries and have been kicked out of almost every single one. So the idea of like leaving, getting kicked out of Spain, getting kicked out of Portugal, having your money, that you have it and it doesn't belong to the government and they can't take it from you. And if you need to, you can just leave. I mean, even, you know, my grandparents were born, you know, during the World War II and the Holocaust, and had to leave Russia and Germany and all the different, you know, it's a real thing. I mean, thank God we live in America, and by Jews we call America Medina Shel Chesed, the country of kindness. That it's a good place to live, you know, and it's been good to the Jews that we've been here. And relatively speaking, even the monetary policy isn't as bad as other places, and the freedom is a lot better. So we really appreciate living here, and we don't. I grew up, never had to run from anywhere, and have lived in comfort. But we know that concept exists because it happened so recently, and it happened in our family. So I think that's something that maybe even older people who have a hard time appreciating things about Bitcoin, the technology wise, might appreciate that concept of it. Judaism is and if you get confused by this word, Judaism is a messianic religion. We believe in Hebrew, it's called the Mashiach. It means the Messiah. We believe that the world is going to eventually come to world peace, prosperity, and technology is part of that. And I think Bitcoin can be part of that, that people would, eventually, and this could be in the way down the line, or who knows, but, people will be better and countries will be better. And so just that's what Bitcoin has a goal of doing that. And just the fact that it's even trying to accomplish that makes it like a positive thing in my perspective. So those are basically the topics that I put in my presentation. I kind of leave it as a question of like, these are the positive things about it. This is what and you can decide what to, if you want to be part of that, or, I don't like force it that you have to agree with this.
It's interesting too, because a lot of the critics of Bitcoin have criticized how it at least has kind of a religious aspect to Bitcoin, in the sense of like Satoshi Nakamoto being this pseudonymous founder, that it's like, that is like a messiah that, presented these rules from on high, and that we also have this like future hyper Bitcoinization where like, it is kind of, from a Christian perspective, like evangelical, like,
well, that the Christian perspective is similar,
Yeah.
In Messiah, like we believe that the world will get to a utopian place, and it'll be a comment on whether it's miraculous or this, technical advancements.
And it's weird to me that critics of Bitcoin point this out as a criticism, when it's like, well, yeah, we want the world to be to improve and to like be a better place in the future. So, I mean, if that is what we have in common with a religion, then that seems like it's a completely innocuous observation.
Sound like a religious extremist.
Yeah, but yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, we've also been accused of like being a cult and worshiping Bitcoin and kind of like seeing it as the answer to everything.
Well, it's fun. It's a lot of fun, and the memes are great. And like for me, like it's basically good kosher fun. Like it's, I'm not into sports and I'm not into TV and movies and stuff, so I really like the community, and just like it's meaningful. I used to be more interested in and listening to a lot more like politics podcasts, but like it's just the same thing over and over again, and it's not getting anywhere. And like, what can you do to make it better? Like Bitcoin actually is doing something and going in a direction, and like there is a real plan there for how it can improve people's lives.
Well, to bring this back to an earlier thing we touched on with, we joked that the internet is, such a terrible place, and why are any of us on it in the first place? But like, I've noticed that of all the sort of online communities that I've dabbled in, over my many, many years on the internet, the Bitcoin community has definitely been just like the most positive, and as you say, sort of like, actually going somewhere. Like there's actual, like when you're in the Bitcoin community, there actually is a feeling of connectedness to all the people. We show up anywhere in the world, and we have a bunch of friends who we're, best buddies with, and we're also like actually building on something together and trying to build something great. So it's actually, I think, very unique, in my opinion, among internet communities.
Yeah, when you know a real Bitcoiner, you basically know a good amount of things about them already, like about their beliefs. Similar, I mean, in that same way that like when I meet a fellow religious Jew, I know by what kind of hat he's wearing and different things. I know like certain things about him, him or her, just based on that knowledge alone. So you also know that about a Bitcoiner a lot of times. So there is a camaraderie in that. But I also feel like it's been a really welcoming, and I think that like for all of the criticism of the what is it called, the toxic, that it's called that it's a toxic place. And I would expect, I've been posting in public. I've not received one thing that was even slightly anti-Semitic, anything like rude. And you see this all like it's a meme that on the internet, don't read the comments, don't. And like I would have expected something. I'm sure it's out there, but like I've only gotten like if you come and you just want to be positive and join and not claim that you not sell anybody anything and not try and like scam anybody or like shill your bags, then it's just kind of a positive and fun place to be. So like I like it, and I'm hoping to get more involved. I live in upstate New York, so I haven't found anything around me here, but close enough to the city. And I actually did get a ticket, so I'm hoping that's like in the summer to come to see Safedin and maybe something before that also. But so far I've just had a positive experience with Bitcoiners.
So you mentioned,
despite what people think, I've not found that crypto and Bitcoin is anti-Semitic. Despite what some people may have said.
Yeah, it's funny because I've said my fair share of very controversial things over the years, and I've never received a single death threat. I've never received a threat against my family. Like I've never really gotten anything. Maybe it's disappointing. Like maybe I should dial it up a little bit, be a little more acrimonious, and a little troll a little more. But I don't feel like I've held back on anyone, and yet no death threats yet. And the other thing too is that, like you mentioned, people not shilling their bags, and part of I think why Bitcoiners get accused of toxicity is when someone does shill their bags and they kind of get told to scram, and that they're like not welcome here. Do you think there's a parallel between that and like monotheism, between Bitcoin maximalism and one God?
I don't know that it gets that you have that similar experience, because it's not like if you're Jewish, people come in and are like, hey, have you tried out this idol? Like you don't get that so much.
But
so,
they would
like,
not.
I'm sure Abraham had to deal with a little bit of that.
Oh yeah, Abraham's father was a idol dealer. He was an idol. He ran an idol shop, and it's a famous story actually that he put Abraham in charge, and left him. He was like a teenager, I guess, and Abraham smashed all of them. I guess they're like clay or stone. He smashed all of them except a big one, and he put the mallet in the hand of the big idol. And his dad came back, and he's like, "What did you do?" And he's like, "I didn't do it. The big guy did it." He got up. They just fought with he got upset with. He got jealous of the rest of them. So that was like his.
Abraham
saying.
Was the first Bitcoin maximalist.
He was definitely a monotheist maximalist. I have my Twitter handle is a Torah maximalist because that's my play on it. But I am also not to listen. I'll just be frank. My religion to me and my belief in God is more important to me than Bitcoin. But I like Bitcoin a lot.
I don't want to get you in trouble here.
But that's the thing. I don't think that they conflict with each other. And I hope God should protect me from making inappropriate jokes, which is bound to happen eventually. I'm sure I'll eventually get in trouble for making a comparison that's like a little too comfortable. So I ask for forgiveness in advance. But I think I've done my research, and there's a lot of more. We in our WhatsApp chat group, we're like discussing Jewish legal perspectives of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency in general, like from different angles, because there's Judaism, I think, is different than other religions, that it's a deeply legalistic and like full life perspective. Like it has governing rules and financial and courts, and I guess somewhat similar to Islam. So there's a lot of ways that Bitcoin can fit into it, that it can be analyzed. And there's barely anything written so far. There's like a couple things that analyze that basically say right now Bitcoin is, from a Jewish perspective, a commodity and not a currency. Which is basically how the government treats it, and that's pretty standard.
And arguably, that's what it is, right? That it has not become a currency yet. It's on its way to being one, but in the meantime, it shouldn't necessarily be analyzed as you would analyze a currency like silver that is kind of fully matured. One of the questions from a Jewish law perspective is mining on Shabbos allowed?
Mining on Shabbos, I would think it would be allowed, because you're allowed to. So on Shabbos, we don't use electronics or anything like that, but you're allowed to leave things running. So you're allowed to leave your lights on in your house and they are running. You're allowed to leave the heat on in your house or something like that. Leave even an oven on and have the food stay in. So I don't think there's a problem with having your computer running its mining at that point. I feel pretty confident about that, but even if it would, the one thing would be like if it was a business and it's a business producing money, you might have to get some. Judaism and the legalities is famous for its loopholes, so there might be some ways that if you have a business and it's considered like you're running your business on Shabbos, that might be problematic. But I don't know. I mean, my computer runs on Shabbos. I think everybody has their computer running on Shabbos. I don't shut down my website. It can get, if you sell things, if you sell products, it does get a little problematic. If you have a website and you sell things on Shabbos, you have to basically sell ownership of your business to a not Jewish person so that they can run it, and then you buy it back from them after Shabbos. It's like one of the ways that it's set up to do it.
Interesting. So I guess you would have the same issues with routing payments as a Lightning node.
It might be the same. It would probably be in the same category if it's problematic.
So you can leave your computer on, but you can't be on it.
Yeah, you can't. We don't interact with electricity.
Okay,
you can just leave it running.
So instead of a Shabbos goy, you get a Shabbos bot.
Yeah.
And you just get it running and doing the things you need done on Shabbat.
Little Python.
That's going to be a big question. I mean, there's going to be when robots are really. I mean, I actually I've got a couple Roombas, and it's going to get more complicated when there are robots are more prevalent, and when bionics and implants are more prevalent. There are going to be a lot more questions. I'm not expert enough or qualified enough to make broad statements about that, but I know that those are going to be upcoming questions over the next decades or so as they come into play.
Yeah, that's very interesting. That same person also had a question. I actually don't know how to pronounce this. I think it's ribis or
ribis means interest.
Yeah, so
ribis
is there
interest.
A problem with ribis when running an LN channel?
No, because you're not. I mean, interest. You can take interest is practically interest. And it's that you are not allowed to. A Jew is not allowed to take interest when they give a loan, a personal loan to a fellow Jew. They just have to get back the original thing. It's because it's considered like a brotherly thing to do. For business reasons, there are other ways to do it. If it's business, like if it's not really an interest, it's like a business investment. So you're getting paid for your investment. So there are ways, but in this case, you are taking a fee for, it's the same thing as a minor fee. Like it's not, that wouldn't fall into that category at all. I feel pretty confident about that.
Yeah, that's a very interesting distinction of the personal loan versus the business loan. Because the most common counter argument to that is just that it's a denial of the time value of money. But in this case, it's not really because it's just saying that if it's a family member who needs $100, it's not cool of you. It's probably not a moral thing to do to be like, hey, give me 150 back, thanks.
Yeah, that's the idea that you're supposed to with your brother, your brethren, you're supposed to help them out when they need it. That's the idea there.
So another question from Apex Bitcoino. Can we talk about Bitcoin during Yom Kippur? And you gave him a response. You responded with another question.
They were very Jewish of me to respond to a question.
Definitely the Bitcoin Rabbi.
I like somebody tweeted out at me a couple weeks ago that was like, if Jews ran Bitcoin, there would be two Jews ran Bitcoin, there would be three forks. The two Jews, three opinions. That so I couldn't. He said, "Can you talk about Bitcoin on Yom Kippur?" So I don't know if he means like if it was Yom Kippur, would you be allowed to talk about Bitcoin? Generally, you on Yom Kippur, which is the Day of Atonement, pretty much just supposed to be talking about prayer and repentance. So I wouldn't recommend talking about Bitcoin on that day. And if he's asking about, are you allowed to run Bitcoin? That's kind of the same question. Yom Kippur is a holiday that's observed just like Shabbos, so we don't do electronics or anything. So that answers either way he was asking that.
Yeah, I've been at Shabbat lunches and stuff before, and of course I was talking about Bitcoin. Why would I be talking about anything else? And someone kind of scolded me, like, why are you talking business on Shabbat? As if I don't know if there's like a sort of rule against that. I would imagine so, because you're not supposed to be working. And I had to explain that, no, this is more of a religious discussion.
Yeah, I struggle with this myself, to be honest. I don't think of it. I mean, we don't talk about business matters. I wouldn't talk about money or the stock market or something like that. But like, this is like, I think of it as more like it's cliche, but it's like a revolution. It's like, it's just like, it is. So I don't know. I could be wrong about that. It's probably better to
are you allowed to talk about politics or technology?
Really, ideally, you're on Shabbos is like a holy day. You're supposed to talk about holy matters, ideally. Under that is talk about like chatty things, but people do. I mean, it's a fact. People do talk about politics, talk about what's going on in the news, because it's also the one day a week where everybody's off work and you see all your friends and what just happened? My screen just went black. I'm good though. So people do, there are better things to talk about. I try not to talk that much, but I inevitably end up talking something about Bitcoin, just like I talk about like something in the news. Not the best thing in the world, not the worst also.
My follow-up question was going to be, is there a Jewish holiday that is ideally suited for talking about Bitcoin?
Second note on my calendar.
Yeah.
Well, probably Purim. But no, Hanukkah. Hanukkah is about money. I posted like it's about gold coins. Like, what could be better about it than that? Some Jewish holiday. Actually, today is a Jewish holiday. Today is Tu B'Shvat. Happy Tu B'Shvat. It's the New Year for the trees, which is a holiday that's about basically the tax fiscal new year, and for accounting purposes for agriculture. There are a lot of agricultural laws in Israel, like about giving tithes and things like that. So it's the new year as far as that's considered, because this is when the trees just barely start blossoming. Obviously, so it's not like a Shabbat day, like that we work on this day and use electricity and stuff. But I did see that, and Michael, we mentioned that like what we're doing here is we're planting seeds, and there is, with this, and we're hopefully like some Jewish people see this and see that Bitcoin could be for them also. But there's a famous story that, and you've probably heard it in non-Jewish context, of like an old man planting a tree. And people came up to him and said, like, what are you planting this tree for? Are you going to eat? You think you're going to live long enough to eat the fruits from this tree? And he said, when I was born, there were trees there that were planted by my ancestors. And so I'm planting trees for my children that they'll have it. And so, with Bitcoin, I don't know when hyper Bitcoinization is going to happen. But I know that I wish I had, I have 5 kids. I wish I had like a lot of Bitcoin for all of them. That's the part of having a lot of kids, that like, you have to kind of divide up your Bitcoin for each of them. My daughter, she asked me I don't know, recently, she was like, do you think that I should get Bitcoin? I was like, you already have Bitcoin. Don't worry. She's 5. So
that's cute.
Yeah.
It's very low time preference.
Yeah, that's
the whole notion. And that also ties in with a lot of Bitcoin discussions around, what we're here for.
Yeah, definitely long, that it's, and yeah, that's, I think Jews have always kind of had like long saving and long-term thinking. And like, that's what happens when your culture and society is like a 5,000-year-old, like directly linked community. Like, you realize that things take time and things progress, and and that the main thing that you invest in is your children, and like, the future and the way the world's going to be. So I see a brighter, somebody I just heard on recently on Marty Bent's podcast. He had one just put out, and there was an older gentleman, Bitcoin Tina,
Yep.
and he said like, he said, I really like that, because I think he's probably around the same age as my father, and kind of reminded me of that, like a conversation with Marty and him, and like me and my father, kind of similar age. And he said, like, before Bitcoin came around, I was pretty pessimistic about the world. Like, I didn't know where we were going, and that changed. I wouldn't say that I was pessimistic, because I wasn't. I'm pretty optimistic, but I can see that somebody, who didn't know, like, how are things going to get better, like, that this kind of puts it in that direction.
Yeah, for sure. Likewise, I've like, when I was into, obviously I still am into Austrian economics and libertarianism and whatnot. Like, I thought like the financial system has to collapse for gold to come back. But now with Bitcoin, it's like, no, actually, we can just build a better system in parallel and transition people over to this better system over a period of decades, and that nothing really has to collapse. All we do is just migrate to a new money.
Yeah, that sounds a lot more fun to just go in that way. And so, speaking of weird, about a low time preference, I would have this, except for the Lightning Network, that really messes with it's like all of a sudden I would take coins and put them on hot wallets and spend them on stuff. Like, I don't know why are we even doing this? Like,
yeah, I asked myself that same question. And I've got now one of the largest Lightning routing nodes, and I don't quite know why. Yeah. It's really,
I'm connected to you.
It's a really reckless thing to do.
I've got the 2-way liquidity, so I can receive. I don't think I've received any. I mean, I don't do much with it. I set it up. I bought my stickers and I bought a hat, and I'm like, great. I'm not interested in spending any more Bitcoin for the next 20 years. Just glad that this worked. Like,
well, if you want us to like send some back and forth just to test it out some more, I'm more than happy to. But yeah, I mean, like you said, like, you're glad it works, like, because at some point in the future, it might be our children, it might be their grandchildren, where like Bitcoin has reached its full value, and we don't expect grandiose adoption anymore. And at that point, it does make sense to go and diversify and use that money, whether it's for investment or consumption. And to know that there's going to be a way to do it in a very nice way to do it, I might add, because of Lightning's properties, and it's still decentralized and 100% reserve and all.
Yeah, I mean kind of lost myself. Yeah, I mean, like Pierre was saying, building a parallel system. Lightning Network is that parallel system for various payment networks. It doesn't mean, even if you set up a channel now, it can just be a small channel just to sort of, show that it works and play with it. But it's really, in my opinion, that the biggest thing is just that it's there for when people need it.
Yeah, I mean, it's awesome. I love what you're doing, Pierre, and we have to, at some point, we're gonna talk about opening up the Brooklyn Hasidic Jewish programming course and get some of these guys in on it, because there's definitely a lot of potential of some smart kids that would be appropriate for this field. That would definitely be a great thing. Yeah, I don't know any. I'm a web designer. I make WordPress websites. I do like video editing. That's my. I'm a teacher. Like I'm a Rabbi in a day school in the mornings, and then I do. My wife and I do graphic design and web design in the afternoons. But I just know like HTML and CSS and some JavaScript. Not much beyond that.
Hey, those are pretty important. I'm the inverse of that. Like, it's a struggle for me when I get into the CSS and the HTML, and that's when I get a front end person like yourself to help me out. Pushing pixels around is very hard.
Yeah, it is. I mean, the websites have gotten a lot easier and a lot. Yeah. I mean, it's cool. I love that. We work from home. Like we have our own business. Like I love this. Bitcoin also kind of fits in this of like everyone can have their own website. Everyone can have their own business. Everyone can be connected, like be decentralized and be autonomous. And then you can have your own money like that also. Like it really does fit in with the with like everything else that's going on.
It's a homegrown revolution.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I know that there are people now that I talk to that are still like somewhat interested in Bitcoin, and it's like I know that they'll get in. Like they didn't know anything about it for the last bull run, and like now they've got the seeds planted, and like there are plenty of people. I think like it's hard to imagine what it's gonna when and what, but like it's gonna be pretty. It's going to be pretty fun. Although I've loved this bear market. Like I thought, in December of last year of 2017, I was like, well, I guess that's it. I've got all the Bitcoin I'll ever have. And I got here like a few months before basically the chance was over. And I felt like awesome. Now I've got a whole new opportunity to like dollar cost average. And like, that's what I've been, that's people they're like, you're still doing that? Cause for like 3 months, I was like the Bitcoin guy at shul. I still am at my synagogue. I still am, but some people just don't notice or don't hear about it as much. So they're like, is that still a thing? I'm like, yeah, it's still a big thing. And so I think there will be people will be ready a lot more, and I'll be ready like for the next time. I've been doing a lot of prepare. I mean, I spent this year like learn, I mean, that's, I don't remember what month I found your guys' podcast. I think the thing that I first started getting in is like listening to things was probably Tone Vase, like probably in like Tone Vase and Jimmy Song. And I was trying to figure all of this stuff out because of 2x. Like I did not know what a node was. I didn't know why would we not want, like, I didn't understand why wouldn't you want more transactions? Why wouldn't this, like how consensus worked, how hard forks work, and like, where do you go? And then you go to Bitcoin, you go to Reddit and our Bitcoin and our BTC. And like, it was genuinely confusing. And like I had to find, your podcast and Tone Vase and like listen, just go on the internet because Andreas, I loved him for like, he's perfect for that, like first couple months in, like really got inspiring and all of that. But like, he doesn't post stuff every day. And like, I wouldn't go to him like for my day-to-day, Bitcoin stuff now, like as a Bitcoin maximalist. But I loved listening to him, and then I kind of like, I loved listening to I've listened to, I guess, all of your interview podcasts and like a lot of Tone Vase and a lot of I'm trying to think on the top of my head, and like Twitter. Basically, I really like Dan Held and VJ Boyapart. Yeah, like it's been, there's so much great information, and I've just loved that I've been able to come in here and just get everything about it over the past year. So that the bear market has been really good for me in both of those, financially and educationally.
Absolutely. I have just a sort of kind of open question. I don't even know if you necessarily have an answer, but with regards to trying to interpret Bitcoin from, a Jewish and Talmudic and, Jewish law perspective, is there anything that Bitcoin sort of, I don't want to say overturns, but kind of brings new light to and makes you rethink?
Religiously, I wouldn't say that it really changes anything about that. I mean, yeah, I'm pretty. It has made me rethink about the role of technology in the the future messianic era, and how that I always did know that, like, it's like there will be no war, there will be no illness. Like, well, there are ways you can conceptualize like how it could be one miraculous, or it could be through science and technology, and or a combination of both. You don't have to believe either in miracles, or it could be that all of these things can work in ways that we can't understand, and that it has made me think about how that could be part of a future that like is peaceful and prosperous, and people are free and cooperate together. So that is, I mean, for my core religious belief, it fits in fine. Like, it doesn't conflict with anything. So it just like fits nice and comfortably. Like, I haven't felt like I felt like I could genuinely be like the Bitcoin rabbi, and I'm not compromising anything.
Not any sort of heretic.
Yeah, like that's. I'm sure someone will call me, and I'm sure anyone, like, people will have different opinions, but I feel comfortable about being in this space and like talking to you guys and being on this podcast, and I feel like that I'm doing not just an okay thing, but I think that I'm doing a positive thing by talking to Bitcoiners about Judaism and talking to Jewish people about Bitcoin. I think both of those. I feel like I'm a two-way ambassador that, like, I can connect between these two worlds and talk to people about what they need to hear and what teach. So it's I'm happy to be in this role that I am.
You're a well-balanced channel, bidirectional.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. That's definitely.
Yeah, and I like what I also like about following you is yesterday you posted a picture of 55 middle schoolers who got stuck on their way to Toronto, and you had to like pull together a bunch of food for them because they were stuck in the snow, and they're all with their thumbs up with their smiles, and it was just like a nice picture to see in my feed because, again, the internet's a terrible place, and seeing someone that I know like doing something good for a bunch of kids is like it put a smile on my face, made my day.
Well, that's really nice. Yeah, I actually have got I don't have my picture as my avatar, but I'm one of the non-anonymous people. I think I thought originally of like being anonymous or like not so much, but like didn't really work. And like I speak in places, and like I want people to contact me, and like I want to I'm gonna go and meet people, and like I'll eventually see you, probably both of you, in person at some point. So yeah, I like to put my be out there and like talk about mostly Bitcoin and Judaism, but like whatever, anything else funny is going on as well.
Yeah, people talk about like OPSEC, and you should use a pseudonym on Twitter so that people don't. But I really haven't had any issues with using my real identity over the past 5 years now. Now, granted, I do know of other people who have had issues, like Jameson Lopp. His house got swatted, and that's a terrible situation. But statistically, like I feel okay using my real identity in that regard.
Yeah, that's that's the kind of I can't really hide, or I can be picked out of a crowd pretty easily. So OPSEC isn't going to work so well for me. So that's you just kind of embrace it. Yeah, that's when I go, you'll know when you see me at whatever Bitcoin thing, and I assume whatever people that don't even interact with me but see me on Twitter, be like, oh, yeah, I guess that's the Bitcoin rabbi. I saw him, on Twitter. I guess that's, unless there are two of them, I don't know. Yeah.
Well, it's funny.
Eventually there will be,
Yeah, there will be. Like Jimmy Song wears a cowboy hat, so that like people can pick him out of a crowd pretty easily. And you likewise.
Yeah, I wear a fedora. I'm not wearing it right now, but that's my go-to signature.
Until you go hat. to the Tel Aviv Bitcoin embassy, where you'll just be one in a million.
Well, that's not really true, Michael. Yeah. You could probably agree with this. Tel Aviv is a very secular, non-religious Jewish city. It is like by definition. So there probably were some religious people that go there, or maybe go for bigger events. I know my brother has been there a couple times, but he showed up for the. My brother is a religious Jew, like I am. Yeah, he has a beard and a yarmulke, and he came there like for the Bitcoin. For January 3rd, for the Genesis block party, and he was like, "Oh, this is a rave. I can't go. I'm not going to a rave party. I'll see you guys later. I'm going home. I will celebrate Bitcoin anniversary on Twitter."
It is quite striking, the difference, between, say, Jerusalem and Tel Aviv.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, Jerusalem. My brother used to live in Jerusalem. I lived in a little village where I went to yeshiva, like a village of a couple thousand families, and then he lived in Jerusalem, and so I would visit him all the time. But that was my main place. We would do some. Where I went to school was just a train ride away from Tel Aviv, so we would go there and actually do religious outreach with secular Tel Aviv guys, and give out holiday items and things like that. So I did. That was my main reason for going to Tel Aviv.
Yeah. Let's see. Did we have other questions in that thread? I don't want to miss anyone's question.
There had been a question about is a double spend via a 51% attack considered Geneva?
That is, Geneva theft. Geneva. That's a really great question. And in general, Bitcoin theft, because the idea is that the possession is when you possess the keys, like your key, those are your keys, those are your Bitcoin. So I would think that it is theft, because theft there still is. I mean, in Bitcoin, it's not technically theft, but theft is a question of government. Like, does government or of not just Bitcoin consensus, but of global consensus, so if you are supposed to own something, like even if somebody tricked you, like, and got around the system, kind of like if somebody, hacked your computer, or if somebody, whatever, hacked a website and got themselves a plane ticket or something like that, I would think that would still be considered theft at that point, if you did something dishonest, or something that, like you spent Bitcoin and then did a 51% attack and then your coins went back, like that would still, that would be theft in that case.
Yeah, I agree. Because if you're doing a double spend with a 51%, let's say you're just, buying a coffee because you really like buying coffee with Bitcoin somehow.
You like buying, and then you like 51% attacking the hash rate of the network to get the price of that coffee.
I just want, because I want 2 coffees. Really like coffee. I don't actually, but anyway, like to that example, but someone is just buying something and does that, they are trying to actively defraud that company by giving them money that they know will, hopefully not actually show up in their wallet. Meanwhile, I mean, the one kind of edge case, I mean, you described as someone, hacked into someone's computer. Now, if you just by almost miracle managed to come across a random number of 256 bits that when you turn it into a private key, you notice that there was Bitcoin associated with it, and then you spent it, That's a little harder for me to necessarily see as outright theft.
It's a good question. So there's a mitzvah
so little.
Yeah, there's a mitzvah. Well, yeah, it's virtually impossible. But whatever. If you just found, let's say, if you found a card that had 12 keys on the ground or something, so there is a mitzvah of returning a lost object. It gets complicated with money because you like with or cash, because like how can a person claim that but there are basically, if somebody can genuinely claim like this is mine, it's rightfully mine, you do have an obligation to try to find the owner. So like you would public post on Twitter or something like, hey, I found these I found this private key, if you can, if you lost it, some way that someone, if they had it, they would be able to prove that it was theirs. So you would have an obligation to do that. And then if nobody claimed it, then you would be able to keep it.
Yeah. Well, I guess with that, you could use the private key to sign a message saying that, so that you've also proved that you actually do have the private key. And you're publicly stating that you want to help someone get it back. I mean, what would I'm sure there's all kinds of different contextual rules, but if that were the case, like how long would you need to wait before just saying, oh, this is mine?
Probably not that long. I don't know off the top of my head. So whatever would be considered, maybe it would be a week or something like that. I mean, if somebody lost money and you post on a public forum, I don't know if it would be a week or 30 days or something, but probably not a very long time.
The reason I asked, in this extreme case, the key, it's not as though the person necessarily lost the money. It could be perfectly safe in whatever cold storage they had. You just miraculously came up with the same private key. And so if that person, if they didn't lose it outright, is probably not going to be out looking for it. As opposed to someone, if it was actually like, if their computer was stolen from them, they're going to be out looking for beacons in the world of someone who says they found something, as opposed to this where they're not looking for it. So I'd imagine in that case, you'd actually probably want to wait much longer.
Right. I hear what you're saying, because they're not. Yeah. I mean, I wonder if there's any kind of chain analysis where you would be able to find some way to connect, at least find what exchange they bought it from, or something somehow to make it better or easier to get. But I would think that you would have to do something. You would have to do some kind of effort to find this, to find out before you took it, whether or not it was abandoned. Because there is a concept, basically, when a lost object is abandoned and has no hope of being found anymore, then it's acceptable. And that's the whole point of trying to find the person. And if you don't find him, that's what you assume, is that you're never going to find them, but you'd make some kind of effort at first. We'll have to come up with these rules, and when it happens the first time, of two private keys matching each other, then we'll have to start developing these rules.
Right. Well, and the rabbis can rest in peace. That's extremely improbable. So the need to come up with solutions to that is not going to have to come anytime soon.
Yeah, I saw somebody posted a question about giving tithes on Bitcoin mining, and the answer to that would be yes. That when you make income, we give a 10% tithe to charity. That would probably be after taxes. So you would have to kind of figure out, how you would be doing that. You wouldn't necessarily have to sell the Bitcoin. You maybe could make a charitable fund or something where you kind of put it off to the side and then at some point sell it all and give it, but it has to be like marked off that from your regular savings. So that's for Bitcoin miner. I mean, similar to taxes, it's like basically the same system. Cool.
Well, we're coming up on an hour at this point. I think are we past an hour?
Yeah, we're past an hour.
Okay, we're an hour and 10 minutes. I like the long noted podcast because that that knows that's an indication of the conversation.
Yeah, I feel it's been great. I'm so glad that I got to talk to you guys and like be part of this. It really is. When the first time we talked on the phone, Pierre, I was like, I feel like I'm listening to the Noted podcast.
Yeah.
Recently someone recognized my voice.
Wow.
It was very strange.
You both have pretty recognizable voices.
Yeah,
I could
we've
pick
got
you
some
out well.
signature pipes on us, and I hope that. So I live in an Orthodox Jewish neighborhood in Brooklyn. So I hope that you'll swing by and we can go to a kosher steakhouse.
That's definitely in the plans. Well, next time I talk to you guys, it'll be we'll talk more about Bitcoin and meat. That I'm personally big in the camp. I've been pretty much carnivore for the past few weeks, and I was always pretty much keto, and so I'm trying to take it more hardcore. But I'm having more difficulty with finding Jewish text to support and stuff. So we'll talk more about that, Michael, when I dive in more into it.
I have my crackpot opinions on that based on totally like naive understandings
get in trouble for.
Look, I read the Torah once, so I know exactly what I'm talking about.
You read a Wikipedia article about the Torah.
It was really well written and it had lots of citations.
Okay. All right. Thanks for joining us. And we'll do this again for sure. And awesome. So I hope that you record your lecture about the Torah and Bitcoin and Judaism, so that we can share that as well on the podcast. That'd be fun.
Yeah. Great. And so I just put up a website. It's thebitcoinrabbi.com. It's just like my Twitter handle at the Bitcoin Rabbi. If anybody is in, I'm in New York. If anybody knows any, Jewish youth groups or anything like that, and you want me to talk about Bitcoin and Judaism, I'd like to do that. So, connect with me there.
Fantastic.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us. And we'll to our listeners, if you want to be able to see these interviews live, you should join our Patreon at patreon.com/noted. I know Patreon's been getting a lot of hate lately, but they've got a good product, is for one, and for two, we are actively exploring Bitcoin options for doing having our listeners support the show. So. It's probably going to be with BTC Pay Server, and I like Jeff Andrews plugin for that, so I'll be playing around with that. But yeah, we've just got so much to build and so little time. It's incredible. Until the next bull market starts, we got to have everything in place. We got to have all this stuff, all the infrastructure in place, so that during the next bull market, if you are sick of Patreon and they're censoring you or whatever, you can jump onto the Bitcoin bandwagon. Anyway, all right, we'll see you next week. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.